Hi, I'm Jo Rochelle, and this is Girl Wonder, a thoughtful and relaxing podcast that analyzes comics on WEBTOON. If you want to dive deep into theories and relive some of the biggest moments in your favorite webtoons, then you're absolutely in the right place. Sit back, relax, and we'll get started. Today on the podcast, we are recapping the events of all 103 episodes of Midnight Poppyland by Lilydusk. We are breaking down what happened in each episode, and my favorite part is that we're discussing all of the yet-to-be-solved mysteries of the series. Like, who is Tora's strawberry girl? What will Inspector Lane's role be in the story? Where is Goliath? And so much more, including the mystery of Poppy's parents and whether she herself is connected to the mafia or not. I have to encourage you to support the wonderful creator of the series, Lilydusk. One way to do that is to join her Patreon at patreon.com/Lilydusk. I've been one of her patrons for years, and I love it. She has such great exclusive perks, and it's nice to be a part of that community and to see the updates that she posts after episodes, so definitely check it out. You'll find the link in the description box of this podcast episode. And if you find yourself enjoying this recap and deep dive and appreciate all of the hours that went into making it, please consider joining my Patreon at patreon.com/girlwonder, where I'll be posting early access podcast episodes, including MPL reactions. I also love to ask my patrons questions and include their voice messages in podcast episodes. My patrons were very encouraging as I slowly released this episode in parts over the last few weeks, so thank you to them. And before we start, our top cities that have listened to this podcast the most in the last 7 days are La Habra, Las Vegas, Palm Desert, Monroe, Royal Oak, Lauderhill, and Laverne. Thank you all so much for listening to this podcast. I can't wait to just break this down for you, especially because Midnight Poppyland returns today. So let's get ready for it together. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. Let's make sure we all remember what happened in the previous 103 episodes. Let's get into it. In episode 1, Poppy walks home to find her boyfriend, Jewelry, cheating on her with a young woman named Mimi. An upset Poppy leaves on her scooter and crashes, hurting her knee and her arm. Tora gets a message from Goliath, who asks him to come save him because they'll kill him if he doesn't come. Poppy finds a bloody tennis shoe and screams just as Tora arrives. He sees her as she stumbles out of the bushes. In episode 2, Tora investigates, finding scattered papers while looking for traces of Goliath. He talks to Giyu, who calls Goliath a double-crossing bitch. And we flash back to a time where it looks like Goliath turned Tora in to the authorities in exchange for clearing his criminal record. Poppy's washing her hands, freaking out over the bloody shoe she found. Tora shows up at the train station looking for her. He asks Giyu to run a background check on her, but Giyu says he'll need a clear photo of her. In episode 3, both Tora and Poppy board the train to Narin City. He hands her the missing page of her research paper and takes a photo of her just as she's reaching for it and her already ripped top bursts open. Tora gives her his jacket and disappears. In his car, Tora follows the train that's bringing Poppy back to the city, certain that he'll see her again. In episode 4, Poppy goes to the police station and remembers how her landlady, Mrs. Haru, told her to stay away from Aries Street. Poppy meets with Inspector Lane, who recognizes Poppy's jacket as Tora's. Also in this episode, Poppy encounters a scary, creepy guy who was just released from the police station. We follow him on a mission with 2 other men to get into Goliath's house and take the notebook. They enter the house only to find Tora waiting for them. In episode 5, we meet Vincent Bulcheman, who's holding a meeting with clan members all about Goliath's notebook. Tora violently brings in the intruder he caught in Goliath's home. The intruder says he received orders from a man named Shane. After killing the intruder, Vincent gives Tora the task of finding Goliath's notebook. We see a flashback of a young Tora left behind bars in a cage as a younger Vincent and his family go on vacation. Poppy spots a cat stuck in a tree and tries her best to help it. However, she falls from the tree and lands on none other than Tora. In episode 6, Poppy still wears Tora's jacket, and he takes the hood of the jacket and covers her eyes with it. However, Poppy does see his arms. After making sure she's okay, Tora disappears. The next day, we find him drinking strawberry juice at a bar, and he's confronted by Claude, a clan member who thinks Tora's hiding something about the notebook. Tora nearly takes his eyes out with a cigarette. Poppy meets up with Mr. Lamb, a potential investor her boss left her in charge of, and we learn that she's the new assistant editor for Giant Goldfish Publishing. As they enter, they walk right into Tora, who's wearing a suit. In episode 7, Mr. Lamb goes on and on about how he's a multimillionaire, which Bolcheman clan member Sarch overhears. Poppy exits the bathroom to find Mr. Lamb walking off with Sarch. Tora stops Poppy from immediately approaching them, but then Tora and Poppy go their separate ways. Later, Tora approaches Poppy in his car, determined to help her after all. In episode 8, Tora tries to help Poppy by calling Sarch, but he doesn't pick up. Tora's car ends up getting towed, which makes Tora curse up a storm. Poppy remembers that Mr. Lamb told her he was heading to the Eastern Commerce Building, and Tora knows a shortcut. As Tora and Poppy stand on the stairs, and Tora looks at a map, Poppy admires his long eyelashes and tucks his hair behind his ear. In episode 9, Poppy gets a call from Audrey, Mr. Lamb's secretary, and Poppy tells her that she's worried about Mr. Lamb's safety. Audrey says Mr. Lamb is with her right now. There is no danger. Tora gives Poppy his business card and calls it the hotline to a lethal weapon. In episode 10, as Poppy leaves, Tora notices she's still carrying the same bag that she had the day he first met her. Quincy pulls up in a shiny new car and tells Tora to drive. Poppy walks into Giant Goldfish Publishing, and we meet her coworkers Erdine and Jacob. They mention a corrupt politician getting arrested thanks to an anonymous tip. At a waffle shop in the city, we see a thug with green hair whose mother asked him to go through boxes and put valuables away. He comes across an old photo labeled Ares Street Kings, featuring a young Tora and Goliath, and possibly a young Quincy. He also finds a DVD that says Modi Suzuki, the name of another politician. We find out that Goliath used to work here at this waffle shop as a waiter, and Goliath grew to be somewhat of a legend. In episode 11, the green-haired thug realizes that the DVD he found with Modi Suzuki's name is going to make him rich. We spot Goliath's black notebook in Poppy's bag as she tries to come up with a plan to get Tora to delete the embarrassing photo he took of her. Meanwhile, Quincy tells Tora he has a job for him today. Tora attacks CEO John Morrison, and Quincy sits there with a glass of wine and claps. In episode 12, Quincy tells John Morrison that Tora is simply carrying out his orders. Apparently, John owes Quincy all of the profit he made from his manuscripts. Quincy makes it clear that his pen name is Q.B. Noyoko, but his birth name is Bolcheman. So that was a summary of the first 12 episodes of Midnight Poppyland, and you can tell a lot happens in the first 12, so let's take a quick break to discuss and analyze some of the unsolved mysteries, because yes, there are some things that are suspenseful in the first 12 episodes that we have the answer to now, but there are some things that are still unsolved. So my first question to you is this: what happened to Goliath? And why was his shoe bloody in episode 1? There was definite blood and dirt at the crime scene, and he was begging Tora, of all people, to help him. What was going through his mind? Was this a setup? Was this a trap? Or was Goliath really in need? Was he murdered that day? We still don't know. A part of me wants to trust Goliath and think that he really was in danger that day, especially because he did leave behind a page of the notebook that Tora found. And I don't think he would have done that on purpose. Those are very valuable pages. And I'm concerned, what kind of injuries has Goliath sustained? A bloody shoe could mean that they beat his legs. It could mean that they beat his face and his blood from his face dripped onto his shoes. I just want to know if he's okay. In a later episode of Midnight Poppyland, we see Goliath running, and he's not wearing the same tennis shoes that were all bloody before. So perhaps that is a current image of Goliath, and he's out there somewhere in the tropics, running for his life still. But what about episode 2, that flashback where Goliath turns Tora into the authorities? I would love to know more about that. That is still an unsolved mystery in Midnight Poppyland. Giyu calls Goliath a double-crosser, and Tora clearly felt some disdain for him when he received the text where Goliath asked for help. And we have to assume that Tora knows Inspector Lane due to this incident caused by Goliath. Another mystery to be solved is in episode 5. Who is Shane? Did you notice when I was reading the recap of episode 5, the intruder who was looking for the notebook in Goliath's house, who later gets murdered violently by Vincent Bulcheman, he says Shane gave him the information. Who is Shane? Will he show up again? Is he important? What do you think? The next mystery is in episode 6. Mr. Lamb. I always wondered if Gil, Poppy's boss, somehow gave Mr. Lamb to Poppy for a reason. We're going to see Sarch take a huge interest in Mr. Lamb. He wants to take his life and probably take his money as well. But Gil, we're going to learn, is a very shady character, Poppy's boss. And she makes it clear in episode 6 that Mr. Lamb was the first big assignment that Poppy was given. And to be honest, it's a little bit over her head. Tasking Poppy with this multi-millionaire and asking her to give her first big presentation to him has always made me wonder if Gil was also doing something shady when it comes to Mr. Lamb. And before we recap the next 14 episodes of Midnight Poppyland, I want to discuss episode 10 and meeting Quincy for the first time. We've talked about it on the podcast before, but I'm curious where your thoughts lie now. Quincy has a scar over his eye. Where do you think that's from? Who dared to scar the heir to the Bulcheman Empire? We know that Vincent is abusive, but do you really think his father did that to his eye? Or do we think it's something else? I have a theory about this based on something Giyu is about to say, so let's go ahead and recap the next batch of episodes. In episode 13, Quincy wants to set the record straight. In front of John Morrison and all of his employees, Quincy says, "You didn't fire me, I fired you." As Quincy leaves, he threatens to destroy John Morrison's home and factories, causing John to collapse. Shortly after, in the parking garage, Quincy throws up because he doesn't like violence. We find out that John Morrison had been plagiarizing his work. The episode ends with Tora receiving a text from Poppy. In episode 14, earlier that day, Poppy has a heart-to-heart with Erdine and tells her everything that's happened to her in the past 2 days. Erdine encourages Poppy to just ask Tora about the photo. Tora texts Poppy to meet him at the Black Swan Bistro. In episode 15, an underdressed Poppy waits for Tora at the Black Swan Bistro. Tora, who is dressed formally, gets a change of clothes from Giyu. Tora says he suspects Poppy's just a civilian who got caught up in clan affairs due to the notebook. Giyu tells Tora that he owes his life to him and young Master Quincy. Giyu cries and says he's sorry for what Tora had to do for him. Tora runs off to meet Poppy. In episode 16, we meet Grandma Alice, who is surprised and excited that Tora has brought a woman over to her restaurant. Tora takes Poppy upstairs and hits his head on a pipe on the ceiling. Poppy touches his shoulder as he crouches down and asks if he's okay. In episode 17, Tora and Poppy receive their sushi, and Tora squeezes Poppy's cheek because she reminds him of a hamster. They talk about Poppy's weight, and Tora flashes back to the people outside the fancy Black Swan Bistro judging her. He remembers being a teenager and being judged and whispered about as well. Tora starts to get mad, and Poppy puts her hands on his lips, stopping him. In episode 18, Poppy tells Tora her name, and he tries to get a rise out of her, calling her Bobby instead. We see a flashback to Poppy's father, who tells her to use what she has to her own advantage, her gaze, instead of relying on physical strength. With this in mind, Poppy asks for Tora's help, and while they're flirting, Poppy accidentally lands a punch on Tora's nose. Poppy sees Inspector Lane calling Tora on his phone, and she tells him not to answer. Feeling upset, Tora leaves. We see Grandma Alice look at a photo of her son, who is wearing a police uniform. Grandma Alice flashes back to a younger, teenaged Tora coming into her restaurant all bruised and beaten and extremely upset. Alice acknowledges that her son was far worse than Tora when he was his age. In episode 19, according to Alice, once you've been sworn into the Bulcherman family, the only way out is death. Her son, Joseph Poker Baby Alice, heads inside in a flashback to talk to Tora. In the present, we see the ring and bracelet that Joseph wore in Tora's pocket. Poppy admits to Tora that she did file a police report against him. Tora says he wants to have dinner at her place, and he'll give her the information she wants about Mr. Lamb, and he'll delete the photo. Poppy says she knows that Tora is the one who saved her when she fell from the tree. In episode 20, Tora tells Poppy that she has the wrong guy and he doesn't know what she's talking about. Poppy insists it was Tora who saved her when she fell from the tree. Tora replies with, "Whatever box you're trying to fit me into, it's the wrong one." With that, Tora walks off and Granny Alice tells Poppy to let him go. Tora drives away, still upset and still thinking about his conversation with Poppy. Poppy returns to her apartment and collapses on the bed. She wonders what it is that Tora wants from her. After a moment, she texts him, agreeing to meet for dinner and asking when it will be. In episode 21, Poppy hasn't heard from Tora in 2 days. Erdine announces that the famous novelist Q.B. Noyoko split with his publisher. Tora finally sends Poppy a text, telling her where Mr. Lamb is, and Poppy tells her friends, in the words of her father, "Sometimes in life, you gotta do what you gotta do." Jacob says that Poppy seems to have something else lurking beneath the surface, and Erdine agrees. We can see Goliath's notebook still on Poppy's desk. Dean gives Poppy a little makeover, some nice makeup and clothes. Poppy spots Mr. Lamb, accompanied by Sarch and another man. Poppy gets in a taxi and decides to follow them. In episode 22, Poppy takes her taxi all the way to Aries Street. Her taxi driver helps her by standing guard as she tries to get a hold of Mr. Lamb. We see Poppy wearing a special bejeweled hair clip, and she stands in front of the club, Miracle. The episode ends with Tora receiving a text. In episode 23, inside the club Miracle, we meet Candy, who is only interested in talking about Tora. Claude, a Boltzmann clan lieutenant that we've seen before when Tora nearly burned his eyes out with a cigarette, tells Candy that Tora is gay. The Boltzmann clan's financial advisor, Sheng Ma, warns Claude about Tora, mentioning the rumors about how Master Boltzmann trained him. It's clear amongst the clan members that Sarch is a psychopath who intends to kill Mr. Lamb. They're interrupted by Ben showing up and yelling, "Let go of my sister, you assholes!" Meanwhile, Tora receives a call from Giyu about the politician Mobi Suzuki, who was arrested after the cops received an anonymous tip. Giyu tells Tora that Sarch is still in town. Upon hearing this news, Tora frantically calls Poppy. In episode 24, a distracted Poppy tells Tora she's in a taxi and hangs up. She's with the same taxi driver she was with before, but now she's joined by a bleeding Benjamin. We learn that she gave Ben $50 to pass a note to Mr. Lamb for her. Ben returns with a head injury and asks to be taken to his teacher. At Quincy's apartment, Tora listens to Quincy's latest romance novel, and Quincy asks Tora why he doesn't just break into Poppy's apartment and take the notebook himself. Just then, Poppy shows up at Quincy's door with Ben. In episode 25, once inside Quincy's apartment, Poppy tends to Benjamin and realizes Tora is there, and he's mad that she went to Aries Street all by herself. Tora also tells her that she saved Mr. Lamb's life, and Benjamin was there on a suicide mission, so she saved him too. Quincy notices that Tora was checking on Poppy to see how she was doing. When Poppy says he wasn't, Tora grabs her hand and asks, "So what if he was?" Now we've recapped the first 25 episodes of Midnight Poppyland. We're getting a real sense of the danger of this world. Mr. Lamb's life was in serious danger and he didn't even know. And it seems like fate just keeps bringing Poppy back to Tora again and again. But we also get more clues into backstories we haven't been told yet. Like how in episode 15, Giyu says he owes his life to Quincy and Tora. Does this have anything to do with Quincy's scar? Or does it have anything to do with that double-crossing Goliath? I've wondered if it's all connected somehow. Especially in that scene in episode 15, if you go back and read it, Giyu says, "Stop calling me Ronzo." Is there a secret behind that name, or is that just his childhood name and it makes him feel childish when Tora calls him that? There is a deep part of me that feels like Quincy's scar does have something to do with the fact that Giyu owes his life to him and Tora. Another mystery yet to be solved was brought up in episode 18. Tora's relationship and backstory to Inspector Lane, because now we know she's saved in his phone, her picture and everything. What was this relationship? We've theorized before and wondered if somehow Because Goliath was an informant for the police, maybe Tora took that path as well, and that's why he's walking free today instead of being behind bars. But is that the case? It doesn't seem like Tora's actively working with the police. But is he? Why do you think Inspector Lane is in his phone, saved number, and everything? What have they done together in the past? Speaking of the past, we have to bring up Poppy's father, who came up in episode 21. We've seen him come up twice now. And this time, when Poppy quotes her father, her coworkers say that Poppy has something lurking beneath the surface. This may seem pretty innocuous to most people, but I have picked up on this quote many times because there is something lurking beneath the surface with Poppy, and it most often comes out when she's thinking about her father and drawing inspiration from him. At this point, he's only been mentioned in the story twice, and in each flashback or flash of an image of him, he looks like a pretty normal man. But there is something ominous that hangs over every mention of Poppy's father for me, and I can't figure out why. Last but not least, I wanted to talk about the rumors of how Vincent Bulcherman trained Tora, which came up when Xing Ma mentioned it in episode 23. In that episode, Claude calls Tora a lowly bodyguard, and Xing Ma says, "A lowly bodyguard? Do you really think someone of his caliber would be a mere bodyguard? Our ranks are the same only because he's too damn lazy to climb higher. But more than that." And then there's a ... and whatever he says after that is blurred out. What was he saying? We don't know, but a surprised Claude thinks to himself, is he for real? Well, that explains a lot. It explains what, Claude? I still want to know. What did Xing Ma say about Tora in this moment that could explain a lot to Claude and make him terrified? I don't know, but I am morbidly curious to figure out how Vincent Bulcherman trained Tora to be the man that he is today. Let's continue to keep all of these questions and mysteries in mind as we recap the rest of Midnight Poppyland. In episode 26, Tora is still holding Poppy's hand like his life depends on it, which is very intriguing to Quincy. Poppy spots Quincy's journal and his pen name, QB Noyoko. Tora drives Poppy to a grocery store so they can get the ingredients for dinner. In the store, a customer is intimidated by Tora and tells his son to stay away from dangerous-looking people, which Tora overhears. And to Poppy's surprise, she gets a call from Mr. Lamb. In episode 27, Mr. Lamb thanks Poppy for helping him get out of a dangerous situation, and he's willing to consider investing in her company after all. Excited, Poppy hugs Tora, who spits juice all over her head. Poppy brings Tora back to her apartment and shows him one of her paintings. While Poppy makes dinner, Tora searches for the notebook, which he can't seem to find. In episode 28, we flash back to 2 nights ago on Aries Street. A clan member named Yadori approaches Tora at a pool table and says he heard Tora was having girl problems, and Yadori offers to take care of it for him. Tora hits him in the face. In the present, Poppy finishes making dinner, and Tora warns her about the vulnerability of her balcony and how it's the perfect place for a break-in, which freaks Poppy out. Tora holds her hand and tells her he's never done that with anyone before. In episode 29, as promised, Tora deletes the photo of Poppy. For dinner, Poppy made Tora's food look like a tiger with hair, which amuses him. Poppy thanks Tora for catching her when she fell from a tree. After Tora leaves, Poppy returns to a Google search she had previously done on the Bulcherman organization and decides to close the tabs for now. In episode 30, we find out that Poppy set up a webcam while Tora was in her apartment, which Jacob could see. Poppy's boss Gil has them come in on a Saturday with bad news about the company, which isn't doing well. Poppy meets with Mr. Lamb, and they bond over the people they've lost, Mrs. Lamb and Poppy's dad. episode 31, we flash back to the dinner Poppy and Tora had at Poppy's apartment. When Tora tries to take a picture of the food to show his friends, Poppy freaks out and tells him not to, thinking about the time her ex-boyfriend Jewelry was teased by his friends and ashamed of the lunch she made him. In the present, Poppy finishes her meeting with Mr. Lamb on a good note, and Tora shows up to her apartment's security gate in a black hoodie, smoking a cigarette. In episode 32, Poppy works on a painting for Mr. Lamb on the roof. Tora calls and Poppy unlocks the gate for him. Trevor, the security guard, who is being intimate with a woman who was not his wife, makes the decision to confront Tora. In episode 33, Trevor, the security guard, tells Tora he can't smoke here, and Tora menacingly puts the cigarette out on his tongue. Terrified, Trevor pees his pants. Tora meets Poppy on the roof and gives her a muffin from a bakery. Poppy gives him a strawberry hair tie. Poppy asks Tora why he took a photo of her on the day they met, and Tora says, because she looked cute. In episode 34, we flash back to a time where Tora and Giyu sit in a truck talking about why Tora can't just ask Poppy about the notebook. Back in the present, Poppy asks if Tora's telling the truth about why he took the photo, especially when he said he only did it because she was cute. Tora tells her it's part of the truth, and that's all he can say. Poppy tells him about the bloody shoe she found, and Tora confirms she is not aware of the notebook. Poppy asks what he thinks of her painting of Mr. Lamb and his wife, and Tora calls her pretty. In episode 35, Tora agrees to deliver the painting to Mr. Lamb, but he wants a kiss on the cheek from Poppy first. Poppy surprises him by kissing him on the mouth instead. Mr. Lamb gets the painting from Tora and loves it. Tora gets a text from Vincent Bulcheman, calling him to his office immediately. In episode 36, we see a news report about 4 high-ranking clan individuals wounded in a sniper rifle attack, and it's safe to assume Tora carried out this attack. Tora has 20 missed calls and several frantic messages from Vincent. In a flashback, we see Tora visiting Vincent, who has a tantrum over not being able to find the notebook. Vincent explains that in the last few days, Bulcheman-owned nightclubs and restaurants have been infested with rodents, a yacht has exploded, and he thinks it's the Nine Daggers clan getting revenge for their missing clan general, Goliath. Tora asks Vincent for a list of names from the Nine Dagger clan to attack. Back in the present, Vincent sends Tora a text saying he's thought about it, and it was a genius move, and the clan leaders are very pleased. In a rage, Tora punches a wall, but he calms down when he sees Poppy's strawberry hair tie on his wrist. In episode 37, Tora texts Poppy and she asks him to take her out on a ride. When they meet up, she's surprised to see he has a leg tattoo of a tiger. They go to a secluded spot with an incredible view of Narin City for a picnic. As they talk, Poppy wonders what he'd look like with braids in his hair. In episode 38, Poppy braids Tora's hair. Tora shares how he and his friends used to come to this place. Poppy learns that Quincy is Tora's boss's son. Tora asks if Poppy's been keeping herself so busy to stop herself from thinking about her cheating ex-boyfriend. In episode 39, Poppy shares that her experience with her ex took a toll on her self-esteem. Poppy turns to Tora and realizes that this is some kind of goodbye. Tora tells Poppy his boss is starting him on a new assignment and he won't be coming around anymore. When Poppy goes home, we learn it's her 21st birthday, and Tora knew all along. He left her a note and the ring and bracelet he always carries with him. In episode 40, Poppy cries as she reads Tora's letter, explaining that the ring and bracelet are some kind of lucky charm. Poppy gets a happy birthday call from her grandmother and her friends, Mirabelle and Danny. Meanwhile, Tora's at a restaurant, thinking of Poppy. he takes a picture of the strawberry hair tie and sends it to Quincy and Giyu. Now we've recapped the first 40 episodes of Midnight Poppyland, and we've earned another Unsolved Mysteries break. So the unsolved mystery of Poppy's dad is something that definitely came up in episode 30. So episode 30 tells us that Poppy's father passed away 6 years ago from cancer. In a flashback, Poppy's with her father up in a tree when little Poppy notices a white van driving along the road. Most of us have theorized that this is the same white van from the Aries Street Kings photo back in episode 10. And Poppy's dad's response is pretty sus. So his daughter points out the white van, and he says, "Whoa, you're right. Let's get down before they see us up here." And Poppy asks, "Why can't they see us?" And her dad says, "Well, most people don't know their way up the trees like us locals do. So if they try to follow, they might injure themselves and we'll get into trouble." And then Poppy says, "There's a rope ladder, though." So that's so sus. Why does he want to get down immediately upon seeing the white van? Because what he just told Poppy about locals and climbing up trees and injuring themselves is just something you say to a little kid to get them to shut up and stop asking questions. So that is an unsolved mystery. Why? Does he know about this van? Is he familiar with some of the clan members inside of that van, or future clan members, future thugs inside of that van? We should also mention that in that Aries Street Kings photo, Tora is helping a young girl with brown hair, and she's wearing a school uniform, and she had cut her knee. So the unsolved mystery here is, did Poppy and Tora meet when they were younger? And we're still waiting to find out. In episode 34, Giyu mentions his sister, saying that she's been calling Tora, but Tora hasn't been picking up. And that leaves us to wonder, who is Giyu's sister? A lot of people have theorized that maybe his sister is Inspector Lane, because we know she's been calling Tora. I think that's a possible theory. What do you think? In episode 37, Tora describes their midnight picnic spot as Thug's Pavilion, saying, "Everyone who comes up here is cursed to be in the mafia for life." It's a dumb curse, passed down from ancient Naren time. Now, Poppy doesn't believe him. She asks if he thinks she's 12. But there is a small unsolved mystery of whether Poppy is doomed to the mafia life, or perhaps has connections we don't know about to the mafia life. It's possible what Tora says here is more than just a funny thing kids make up, but we'll have to see. And finally, in episode 40, in a flashback, we see Tora doing business in the Aries Street Bakery building, which also has a pets and supplies place, where Tora gets a bag of sedated rats. Uh-oh Shoes commented on this episode of the webtoon and said, "And we now have confirmation that Tora is sabotaging the Boltzmann organization. He's the one who's behind the rats getting loose in the nightclubs and restaurants. He's taking Vincent down from the inside." Is he? That's a great theory, and it adds up. It makes me wonder if Tora is really taking down Boltzmann from the inside, or if there's even more complications to this plan than we can even realize. Let's keep these questions and mysteries in mind as we continue to recap Midnight Poppyland. In episode 41, Giyu and Quincy discuss Tora's text messages, including the tiger bento and the strawberry hair tie. Giyu comes to the conclusion that Poppy is the woman that's been on Tora's mind lately. At work, Poppy tells Erdine and Jacob that she figured out that Quincy is QB Noyoko. Meanwhile, their boss, Gil, looks at the notebooks on Poppy's desk. In episode 42, Gil tells Poppy he found a black notebook lying around on the floor, and he watches her closely to see her reaction to it. Jacob checks to see if the notebook is his, and he realizes that it's empty. Gil was just trying to see what information Poppy knew. Quincy and Poppy make plans to meet up at a restaurant, and we meet Cordelia, someone Quincy's intimate with, and to Poppy's surprise, Tora shows up at this restaurant too. In episode 43, Tora is sniffling and sneezing with a cold, and he's furious with Quincy for tricking him into seeing Poppy tonight after he's already said goodbye to her. Quincy explains that Poppy is his editor now. As they eat dinner and talk about their jobs, Cordelia asks what Tora does for a living. Tora says, "I'm in the mafia." In episode 44, Quincy covers for Tora, saying that Tora isn't in the mafia, he's just his bodyguard. Tora wants to talk to Poppy outside, but she says no thank you. When Tora sits back down, he falls out of his chair and he's running a high fever. Tora apologizes for being an ass to Poppy and holds her hand. In episode 45, Poppy drives Quincy and Tora back to Tora's apartment. Poppy asks about her flower-shaped hairpin that she left at Quincy's place. Quincy hasn't seen it. Quincy puts Tora on his back and heads up the stairs to his apartment. The next day, Quincy shows up to Poppy's office and meets Erdine and Jacob for the first time. Worried about Tora, Poppy shows up at his apartment. In episode 46, Poppy enters Tora's dark apartment and makes him some food. She also makes him cover up with a blanket and reminds herself that he is not a piece of meat. Tora apologizes for yelling at Poppy the night before. In episode 47, Poppy accepts Tora's apology. He encourages her to vent about why she was so upset with him, and Poppy lets it all out. When Tora reaches for a cigarette, Poppy stops him. He explains that having a cigarette is like a reward system, and then wonders if kissing Poppy could be his new reward system. They kiss. Still feeling sick, Tora goes to lay down. In episode 48, Tora falls asleep with his head in Poppy's lap. In his dream, he's a little boy at the beach, and adult Poppy is there, giving him some seashells. We learn more about Tora's backstory, and then he wakes up and asks Poppy if she would like to go to the beach someday. Poppy leaves his apartment, and we see Ben texting someone, trying to see how much he can sell Poppy's hairpin for. In episode 49, we learn that Ben's sister Candy, who works at Club Miracle, is actually Ben's mother, and his goal is to earn enough money to pay off her debts. Quincy shows up to work at Giant Goldfish Publishing with his big, scary, mean, and intimidating bodyguard, Tora. And Poppy and Tora immediately start flirting. In episode 50, Tora scares the crap out of Jacob in the office. Erdine realizes she missed Poppy's birthday last week. Quincy says he knows the perfect nightclub, and Tora's birthday is also coming up. Erdine meets Tora and immediately does not like him. In episode 51, Poppy pretends that she's meeting Tora for the first time, but then quickly admits to Erdine that she does know Tora and he's a good guy. Erdine insists that Tora scares her. Quincy plans for a joint birthday party with Tora and Poppy. Mr. Lamb texts Poppy and tells her the two thugs he left with claimed to be close associates of Quincy, which really concerns Poppy. After Googling and finding out that Quincy's a Boltzmann, Poppy asks to have a word with Quincy and Tora outside, where she confronts them with this information. We find out that Quincy was born into two powerful mafia clans on his father's side and on his mother's. In episode 52, around the office, Poppy can't help but feel like Tora is avoiding her and averting his gaze. Poppy shows up at the nightclub for the joint birthday party, and the bouncer refuses to let her in until Tora shows up. They walk in together. In episode 53, the Fallen Angels nightclub is in a cave. Poppy talks to Erdine about taking time before she jumps back into another relationship. Poppy and Tora do a lot of staring at each other from across the room. In episode 54, Poppy and Erdine meet some of Tora's little bros, Damien, aka Pinky, and Brian. Two men approach Poppy when she's alone, but Tora intercepts. As Poppy talks to Jacob, Tora approaches her. In episode 55, Erdine makes out with Damien, aka Pinky. Tora and Poppy talk at the bar, and Poppy tries to get to know him better. Tora stops the bartender from giving Poppy a drink that was tampered with by the two men who had wanted to talk to Poppy. Tora's little bros scare them off. In episode 56, Poppy's shoe slips off, and Tora helps her put it back on. Poppy asks him if he'd like to explore the cave with her. They spot Erdine and Damien making out. Tora thinks about the reason he doesn't drink, because every shred of self-control he has gets ripped away whenever he does. Poppy boldly flirts with Tora. In episode 57, Poppy and Tora kiss, and she asks if buzzed kissing counts. Tora pulls away, somewhat hurt by the question. Poppy shares more of her personal life and insights with Tora. As a birthday gift, Poppy gives Tora the ring and bracelet he gave her and asks him to put it on for her like a necklace. Later in the night, as Poppy is hanging out with Tora's bros, Brian tells her a secret. Tora is gay. In episode 58, the season 1 finale, we see Tora accidentally break the necklace with the ring. Poppy promises she'll keep it and cherish it. Tora gives Poppy a piggyback ride once they leave the club. Poppy tells him a secret she heard about him from Erdine, and Tora almost trips. In a flashback, we see Poppy tell Quincy that the hairpin she can't find is a family heirloom that belonged to her dad. Quincy suspects Benjamin took it. We see Ben with Candy on Aries Street with a jewelry appraiser. Then we see Goliath running for his life, chased by 3 men with guns somewhere in the tropics. I want to talk to you about the unsolved mystery of the Strawberry Girl. So in episode 41, Quincy wonders to himself, maybe Tora hasn't gotten over Strawberry Girl. And Giyu asks, who's that? And Quincy says, nobody, and thinks to himself that Tora will kill him if he tells anyone. So we have to wonder, who is Strawberry Girl? Because it is very rare for someone to mention somebody that Tora hasn't gotten over romantically. And back in episode 30, we saw Poppy drinking some strawberry juice with her dad. So that is the prevailing theory, that somehow these two knew each other. We'll have to see if that's right. In episode 42, we see a flashback of the moment when Poppy's father passed away. So Poppy's grandmother was with her. Granny said, "Poppy, your dad's gone now. Let's go, sweetie." Poppy said, "I don't believe you. Dad's just asleep, right, Granny?" Granny said, "I'm sorry, Poppy girl. Let's go. We'll talk outside, okay?" Poppy said, "No, I want to wait for Dad to wake up. Mom's already left us. You can't do this to me, too. Dad, please don't leave me behind." Okay, my friends, I have a wild theory brewing within me. And when I say wild, this theory is really wild, but maybe it could be right. What if her dad isn't dead? I'll get to it later when we see Granny and Moonbright, and she thinks something very sus. But this wild theory of this moment where Poppy's like, "I don't believe you. He's not dead. He's just sleeping." And Granny's like, "Let's just go outside." I mean, is it plausible that Poppy's father, for one reason or another, faked his death? I mean, I think he died quickly. They said it was late-stage cancer, and it was sudden, and maybe he just faked his death. But you know what kind of trauma that would bring to your daughter's life? but maybe he had a good reason for it, or maybe I'm looking too hard into it. Because, of course, we could take this scene, this flashback of him dying at face value, for sure. It makes sense that a young girl like Poppy would be like, this isn't it. I don't believe it. He's not really dead. But we have reasons to suspect Grandma, which we will get to in our next Unsolved Mysteries section. So in episode 43, we meet Cordy, who is a legal practitioner of sorts. At least that's how she describes herself. And I wonder if we'll ever see Cordelia again. It feels like an open thread. Like we may see her again, and she may use her lawyer skills at some point in the story. So I am marking Cordelia as an unsolved mystery in Midnight Poppyland. And in episode 48, we fill in the pieces of Tora's life. We learn that Vincent Bulcheman found him as a kid on the streets. At least this is what we can glean from the dream that he was having. We also learn that Tora ran away from his adoption center because they weren't treating him well. And he said they weren't treating us right. So maybe him and Goliath? It's not quite an unsolved mystery, but it's another open thread. And it's that Poppy and Tora are going to have to go on a beach date at some point. I mean, he can't ask that and then we never see them on the beach together. I believe we'll see that someday. And I just wonder how it'll happen. Beach wedding, anybody? Episode 58 has the unsolved mystery of Goliath. What on earth is he doing in that tropical place? What is going on? Did he fly here? Did he run here? Are there tropical places near Moonbright or Naren City? He definitely isn't wearing the shoes, the bloody ones that Poppy found. He's wearing much more like professional looking shoes, not running shoes, though he is running. They don't look like the kind of shoes you would run in. So what is going on with Goliath? That's one of the biggest unsolved mysteries of Midnight Poppyland. All right, let's get back into it. In episode 59, the season 2 premiere, Poppy's job hunting in hopes of making extra income, Poppy meets up with Ben for some noodles, and he apologizes for taking her hairpin. They talk about their mothers, and Poppy mentions that her mother left when she was younger. A roach startles Ben, and he spills his food on someone, a street thug with green hair, the same man from episode 10 who found the DVD of a politician named Suzuki, along with the Aries Street Kings photo. Meanwhile, Tora exits a pool hall in Aries Street and sees Poppy running towards him, yelling at him to run. In episode 60, Tora tells Poppy to stand her ground, even though there are several people chasing her. Earlier, Poppy places the roach on the green-haired thug's phone and runs away with Ben. And once she and Ben find a hiding spot, Poppy debates whether to call the police. In episode 61, Ben goes off to get help, and Poppy is approached by a creepy guy in an alley. After freezing for a moment, Poppy makes a run for it and finds Tora. Meanwhile, Ben runs to his mother, Candy. In a flashback, we see Ben and Candy with the jewelry appraiser who doesn't want the hairpin and doesn't want to get in trouble with his boss, Sarch. Back to Poppy and Tora, the sun sets and the street lights on Aries Street come on. In episode 62, the 6 thugs who chased Poppy taunt Tora, who they've never heard of, and she warns them to be careful, claiming that she is under Tora's protection. They question why Tora would be with a civilian in the first place. Tora lights a cigarette, and Poppy kisses him in front of them. In episode 63, while kissing Poppy, Tora flashes his Bulcheman neck tattoo at the thugs, which makes them run away. Poppy tells Ben that she's okay. We learn that Candy is in debt because she co-signed her ex's loans. In the alley, Poppy and Tora see the cops chasing someone down. Tora tells her that in the mafia, informants are called numbered because their days are numbered. In episode 64, Poppy gets a cab and remembers her birthday party the night before. In a flashback, She drunkenly teases Tora, telling him that Erdine saw him dancing to indie pop in the office. She also makes an innuendo about his pool stick, which Tora won't let her forget. Tora goes to bed that night, replaying his conversation with Poppy over and over again in his head. In episode 65, at work, Erdine tells Poppy she hooked up with Damien at her place and teases Poppy about her flirtatious relationship with Tora. Poppy's boss, Gil, meets with Quincy to sign papers, and Gil internally panics the entire time. Upset with Poppy, Gil calls her a dumb little bitch in his mind. Quincy and Tora sit outside in the parking lot, questioning what to do about Gil next. In episode 66, Tora's done his research and found out that the company Gil worked at before scammed people out of millions. Gil talks to Poppy in a friendly manner, but Poppy feels weird and creeped out. Poppy gets a text message from her ex-boyfriend Jewelry saying her grandmother is in the hospital. Gil goes home and flashes to a moment with his wife, who is upset with him about the scams he pulled and the people that are now hounding them because of it. In episode 67, we continue that flashback with Gil and his wife, and he threatens her life. In the present, Poppy calls Jewelry, who begs for another chance at their relationship. Poppy hangs up and tells her coworkers she's taking the day off to visit her grandmother in Moonbright. Poppy leaves, and Erdine is extremely concerned, which confuses Jacob. Erdine seems to know more than she lets on. Tora bursts into the office. In episode 68, Erdine tells Tora that Poppy went to Moonbright, and Tora immediately runs out. Quincy sits with Jacob and Erdine at a cafe and tells them there's a possibility that Poppy's life is in danger, which is something he told Erdine before. Poppy's on a train to Moonbright, and her text messages to Tora aren't going through. However, Tora's already there, standing in front of a house that should be Poppy's, but isn't. In episode 69, Poppy visits her grandmother, who has a sprained wrist and hates Poppy's ex, Jewelry. Poppy soon discovers that her grandmother orchestrated this injury as a ploy, hoping that Poppy would move back home. Meanwhile, Tora realizes that Poppy's address in the system has been swapped. In episode 70, Poppy gets her scooter and is confronted by Jewelry, who does nothing but try to manipulate and gaslight her. Meanwhile, Tora searches all over Moonbright, ending up at the place where he first met Poppy. In episode 71, Tora finds Poppy and Jewelry, and Poppy tells Jewelry Tora is her uncle. Jewelry makes some rude comments about Poppy, and Tora smacks him in the face. Jewelry runs away. Meanwhile, Giyu is working as a security guard at Poppy's apartment building in Naren City, and he feels like something is off about tonight. The unsolved mystery of Poppy's hairpin is something I want to continue discussing with you. Remember how Ben was shocked that the jewelry appraisal guy said $50? And in the flashback in episode 61, Ben says to him, "You can't see it because there's some kind of coating on top, I swear. I took a gemology class in school." And the jewelry guy says, "I'm not going to waste my time polishing this thing only to find out that you were wrong about it." You guys, what if this hairpin is worth more than we think? That just always stood out to me as a clue and as foreshadowing, because we know that this hairpin isn't even a hairpin. Poppy turned it into one. But this is something that is a family heirloom that comes from her father's side of the family. So I'm always high-key suspicious whenever there's anything involving her dad. This cannot just be a regular, useless, cheap thing. Maybe it's not made out of diamonds or expensive jewels, but there's something about this hairpin. And I would not be surprised if Ben was right, and if you polish off the coating, it's worth a lot more than we imagined. And now, to return to my wild, wild theory that involves Poppy's granny and Poppy's daddy. So in episode 69, Granny wonders to herself when she's just alone in her hospital room. Poppy has left the building. Granny wonders to herself privately, is it time to let her know? This is a significant unsolved mystery of Midnight Poppyland. Is it time to let Poppy know what? So back to that wild theory. Maybe is it time to let her know that her father is alive? It's a stretch, but her grandmother was there the moment her dad died and told Poppy to leave the room and go outside. Once again, we could take that at face value, and that's a very moving and sad backstory for Poppy. But it could also be that her dad is somehow still alive, and this was all to keep her safe. And maybe it's time to let her know, because Poppy is smart, and Grandma's tricks don't always work on her. She was like, hey, that wobbly chair that you stood on and you sprained your wrist from falling, you did that on purpose. So maybe Grandma's like, Poppy's shrewd enough, she's going to figure this out. And even if that theory is wrong, one question we can all ask ourselves is, why doesn't Poppy's grandmother want her living in Narran City anymore? I don't think it's as simple as, oh, I just want my granddaughter to be close to me. It seems like there's more at play. Because Narran City is where Ares Street is. It's where the mafia is alive and well. And I'll just never forget Poppy's father acting so suspiciously when she said, hey, Dad, look, there's a white van down there. He's like, run, let's get out of this tree. I'll never forget that. Her family knows more than they let on. They are privy to some mafia things, and there are more hints leading us in that direction as we continue to break down and recap all of Midnight Poppyland. In episode 72, Tora tells Poppy that he went back to the place where they first met, and he remembered her saying she was going to call a tow truck for her scooter. Poppy apologizes for making fun of the way Tora speaks and invites him to stay at her place in Moonbright. Tora discovers Jewelry did something to his rental car, which makes Tora start to laugh. In episode 73, Jewelry stuck a potato in Tora's rental car's exhaust pipe. Poppy gives Tora a ride on her scooter. Tora switches places with her and starts to drive. When they get to her place, Poppy puts on more comfortable and more sexy clothes and asks Tora if he's hungry. In episode 74, Poppy randomly asks Tora what it would have been like if they'd known each other when they were younger. Tora asks if she liked strawberries as a kid. Poppy says not particularly. Poppy wants to learn more about him and wonders if Tora is worried she'll stop talking to him when she does. In episode 75, Tora says he might need Poppy to bribe him first if he's going to open up. Poppy kisses him. Tora shares that he's an orphan. Poppy feels like an orphan too. Her mom left when she was 6, and they haven't spoken since. A spider scares the crap out of Tora, and they both fall in the water. Poppy's neighbors show up, and Poppy gets them to leave. Poppy returns to Tora and kisses him again. In episode 76, sharing more about her life, Poppy shares that her cousins Danny and Belle are actually her aunts. Things get heated in the water, and Tora and Poppy agree to go inside. Tora flashes back to a conversation with Quincy about his desire to tell Poppy everything about Goliath and the notebook, so Poppy can make an informed decision if she decides to move forward with him. In his mind, Tora contemplates whether he should tell Poppy or not, and whether he's falling in he doesn't know what. Poppy's now wearing Tora's dinosaur sweater and asks to touch his eyelashes. As they flirt, Tora gets an alert on his phone that there's been unusual movement at Poppy's balcony. In episode 77, Tora sees the alert and asks Poppy to trust him to come back to Narran City with him tonight. Poppy shares that she has some trust issues. Tora thinks back to his conversation with Quincy, who told him that telling Poppy everything will put a target on her back for years. In Tora's head, he admits to himself that he's falling in love with her. In episode 78, Tora hears from Giyu that he was just testing the alarm system. Tora asks Giyu to look into Cordelia for him, behind Quincy's back. Pinky/Damien shows up, soaking wet and covered in leeches. Tora tells Poppy he'll sleep in a room with Damien tonight, which disappoints her. In episode 79, the next morning, Poppy visits her grandmother, who says there's something important she wants to tell her, but Poppy's too exhausted to hear it right now. Tora drives Poppy home. A few days pass by with no contact between Poppy and Tora, so he shows up to work with Quincy. In episode 80, Tora tries to tell himself that it's just a crush, not love. Once Erdine and Quincy leave the room, Tora pulls Poppy into a closet and tells her he missed her. In episode 81, Poppy and Tora kiss in the closet. Poppy asks if he wants to get a coffee with her. Meanwhile, Brian and Damien are keeping an eye on Gil, who is at a conference that suddenly has a gas leak. We see Gil return to a place he calls his secret hideout, where there's a dead body of a blonde woman he calls Honey. In episode 82, as Tora heads out for coffee with Poppy, he flashes back to the time he broke into Gil's house, looking for the notebook, and overheard Gil's wife talking to the baby in her stomach. In the present, Poppy orders her drink, and Tora gets a text from Damien saying they lost Gil. Tora immediately starts berating himself in a voice that sounds a lot like Vincent's. Tora harshly tells Poppy he'll pick her up at 6 and leaves. Stunned, Poppy sits by herself and cries as Tora drives around, frantically searching for Gil with the intent to kill him. In episode 83, a gloomy Poppy returns to the office. Quincy tries to reassure her and cheer her up. At 6 p.m., she waits outside for Tora to come pick her up, which he never does. Poppy suddenly fears that Tora is in danger. In episode 84, Tora is in a bad place mentally. He couldn't get Gil, and now he's on the side of a bridge, taking deep breaths. Once he feels better, he calls Poppy, who is in a cab on her way home. She hangs up, and Tora gets another warning notification from Poppy's balcony. In episode 85, when Poppy gets home, she sees Giyu sleeping at the security gate. She goes upstairs. Later, Tora arrives and sees the lights flickering on and off in Poppy's balcony. Tora heads up there and finds Poppy gagged and tied, holding a knife against her attacker. Tora gets his gun out, but the attacker sees him and runs away. In episode 86, Poppy tells Tora that she was making dinner in the kitchen when the attacker snuck up on her. Poppy struggles to process what happened and trembles, terrified. So let's talk about that unsolved mystery of the Strawberry Girl a little bit more. So in episode 74, when Poppy asks what it would have been like if they'd known each other when they were younger, look at Tora's face in the next panel. He's really thinking about his Strawberry Girl there. And of course, he asks her about strawberries and whether she likes them. Which leads me to believe that Tora's with us. He also has the theory that Poppy is his Strawberry Girl, whatever that means. I can't wait to get more backstory on that. I want to see the day that they took that Aries Street Kings photo so badly. I want to see Tora help that girl, and I want to know if she was Poppy. That is a big mystery in Midnight Poppyland. In episode 75, Tora explains that his dad died when he was 4 or 5. He says, "Then they sent me to an adoption center because my ma couldn't take care of me for shit." This makes me curious about Tora's mother. Why couldn't she take care of him? What specifically was going on with her that she couldn't take care of her child? Tora says that last he heard, his mom died a few years back. This is also the episode where Tora says he's in the mafia, and Poppy replies with, "Well, so am I." Now, Poppy, girl, what do you mean? I need to know. This is a huge mystery, and things have been hinted at. I've been telling you. There are hints that Poppy has some kind of mafia connection in her own personal family life, and I just want to know, what did she mean by that? That stupid spider came and ruined the moment, and I didn't get any more information from Poppy. But we'll have to see if Lilydusk picks up on that some more, if there's more hints to Poppy being connected to the mafia in that way. I just wanted to mention in episode 76, Poppy tells Tora that the neighbors who saw them in the lake were Ned and June. And those were her dad's only friends and co-workers from a local computer engineering company, which is another clue about Dad, which is going to come up again. So just tuck that away in your memory. Also, in episode 77, we see a flash of the day Poppy's mom left. So we get to actually see what Poppy's mother looks like, beyond photos of her. And in this flashback, she is reading the newspaper and she turns her head away from her daughter. Could this possibly be misconstrued? Is it as callous as we think? Because Poppy's over there screaming, saying, "Sorry, Mom, I'll wear a helmet next time. Please don't leave because I didn't wear a helmet." And it's devastating. Is there any way, if we were to go and see this through the mom's point of view, we wouldn't hate her? Because obviously right now, this is a horrible thing she's doing to her daughter and to her family, just piecing out. But the way she turns her head away, did I sense some guilt there, or am I just reading too much into it? I'm probably reading too much into it. Still, Poppy's mom is a mystery waiting to be solved. She's definitely going to come up in the story again. In episode 78, when Quincy's talking about Poppy and Tora trying to be in a relationship, Quincy says, "I guess you could keep it underground, or she could pose as a disposable piece, though I don't know if she'd be happy about that, and those come with their own risks." What do you think that means? Poppy could pose as a disposable piece? A part of me wonders, because later we're going to get to a scene where, to protect Poppy from Vincent, Tora says, "Oh, she's just some hooker." Is that kind of what they mean in this world of disposable pieces? Is that what they mean? Poppy certainly wouldn't be happy with that, so maybe that's what he meant. I don't know. It's a mystery. Because the only other thing I can think of is posing as a woman that Tora sleeps with occasionally, but it's nothing serious. That's the only way to protect her. Who knows? But Tora brings up Cordelia in this conversation, the same Cordelia that Quincy has been sleeping with. Quincy says, "You won't interfere with my personal affairs or act on behalf of my old man, at least not until D-Day, right? Our agreement still stands, right?" What is D-Day? Another mystery. This episode's chock full of mysteries. And Tora looks into Cordy anyway, and Giyu's research says that Cordy is a clan attorney for an unknown Boltzmann affiliate. So doesn't it feel like that's an open thread where we may come back to the storyline later and meet this person that Cordelia is a clan attorney for at some point? I wonder who it is. Also in this episode, one last thing, Tora asks Giyu if a computer engineer could hack the system and switch up the addresses in the same way that Poppy's Moonbright address got switched with some random families. Yeah. Tora he's also trying to solve these mysteries with us. He's a little sleuth. Poppy's dad definitely did that, and Tora suspects him as much as we do. In episodes 81 and 82, we learn the grim news that Gil is a murderer who killed his pregnant wife. And Gil comes across a dinosaur toy that he assumes his wife must have dropped during their scuffle. Tora flashes back to a time when he was little and had little hands, and he was getting a T-Rex dinosaur toy. And I was looking closely at the hand that gave it to him, because that hand doesn't necessarily look like an adult hand. I'm not sure, but my best guess is that maybe Goliath gave it to him when they were younger and all they had was each other. Okay, we're hitting the home stretch. Let's continue our recap of Midnight Poppyland. In episode 87, Poppy's clinging to Tora and remembering that she was supposed to be mad at him. She asks if she can bunk with him tonight. Then she passive-aggressively brings up how Tora ordered her around at the cafe. They get into a huge fight. Poppy apologizes and explains why she was upset with him. In episode 88, Tora apologizes to Poppy as well. They have a heart-to-heart. He tells her not to cut him any slack, and her safety always comes first. Giyu comes in to tell them the intruder got away. In episode 89, Tora's upset with Giyu for falling asleep at his post. They start to tussle, and Poppy yells at them to stop fighting. Tora and Giyu quickly make up. Poppy goes to Tora's place. Tora steps out of the shower, and Poppy asks for a towel. In episode 90, Tora made Poppy food, and they eat it together. Poppy asks about Tora's guitar, which was a gift from Granny Alice's son, Joe, who was a cop who died in the line of duty. In episode 91, Poppy assures Tora that she still has the ring he gave her. Poppy and Tora walk to a playground. He tells her a little bit more about Joe. Then he kisses her. In episode 92, Poppy and Tora continue to kiss and flirt on the playground. Then Vincent Bulcheman and several others from the clan show up. Vincent wants to talk to Tora, but he's surprisingly interrupted by his wife, Goa. Goa distracts Vincent long enough to let Poppy and Tora get away. On the news, we see that the leader of the Nine Daggers clan was arrested for multiple counts of manslaughter. In episode 93, Quincy tells Tora and Poppy that he sent his mom to save the day. In a flashback, we see him pick her up from the airport, and she tells Quincy to never let his father know that Goa's mother's health is deteriorating. In episode 94, Poppy finds out that she and Tora both need to hide from Vincent. Tora is in trouble too. Quincy and Tora finally tell her everything that's been going on. The notebook, Goliath, Gil. The next day at work, Poppy finds out that Gil hasn't paid the office rent in 6 months, and Quincy got Erdine and Jacob a job at a prestigious advertising firm. Poppy is upset to find out that everyone knew her life was in danger except for her. Tora walks into the office with a new hairstyle. In episode 95, Poppy's very upset and feels like she's been treated like an incompetent child. Poppy also has a job offer from the advertising firm, with her role being Chief Executive Hamster, a joke from Tora, which is not well received at the moment. Quincy cheers Poppy up. In episode 96, Poppy, Quincy, and Tora arrive at the clan-neutral beachside town called Felicia Bay. They reach a huge manor, which Poppy is shocked to find out belongs to Tora. The episode ends with Inspector Lane and her kids seeing Tora's van as he drives by. In episode 97, we learn that Tora bought this house the moment Poppy said she'd maybe consider leaving her apartment to live with him for her safety. Tora frantically got everything ready for Poppy, who he knew was mad at him, to the extent that he was worried they weren't even friends anymore. We flash forward to Poppy waking up with both Tora and Quincy in bed with her. In episode 98, the first night at the manor, Quincy asks to bunk with Poppy because he feels like the place is haunted. They wake Tora up, telling him to go see if there's a ghost. He confirms that, yeah, they're ghosts, so they all sleep in Tora's bedroom that night. The next day, Poppy offers the ghost in the cabinet some fruit and beer. Meanwhile, back in Narin City, we discover that Sarch received money from Gil to release incriminating videos of clan members. In episode 99, during their first night at the manor, Poppy asked Tora to meet her out on the porch. Pretending to be Dream Poppy and not real Poppy, she tells Tora how she's been feeling, and they kiss, and Tora calls her out for getting aroused. He tells her to take as much time as she needs to be mad at him, but not too long, because he misses her. In episode 100, Quincy and Poppy find some funny writing inside the cabinet they think is haunted. It's one word: go. They pile more food into the cabinet and beg the ghost to let them stay. Tora imagines what his life with Poppy would be like if he wasn't in the mafia. In episode 101, Poppy offers to help clean the house, like a housekeeper of sorts. Tora gets a message from Giyu, who sends him a picture of the outside of Poppy's apartment. It's Yadori and a few other thugs. Tora immediately goes into his do not disturb mode, and Quincy warns Poppy about it. Quincy gets Poppy a uniform for her housekeeping. In episode 102, Poppy and Tora make Quincy wear the maid's uniform and wash the dishes. Poppy drools over Tora as he talks about the next moves he's going to make against Gil. Trying to be more honest, Tora lets Poppy know about the street thugs spotted outside of her apartment and office. With Sarch's help, Gil leaked her photo and personal information, saying Poppy is the one with the notebook. Yadori finds out that Poppy's under Tora's protection. In episode 103, Poppy asks Tora if he has any information on Gil's wife, Louise, who Poppy says is missing. Apparently, Luis's niece, Lara, reached out to Jacob. Tora tells Poppy Luis is dead, and he killed her. Something I wanted to point out about Poppy's intruder is that in episode 89, they say that he broke into 3 other units. That just seems significant. We haven't confirmed who the intruder was, and there was a big part of me that guessed it was Yadori, but then Yadori showed up in the story, and that rhymed. Yadori showed up in the story, and now I'm unsure. I'm just not sure about it anymore. I'm not sure who the attacker was, but I think we'll find out. In episode 90, we learn that Joe died in the line of duty and that his clan name was Poker Baby. I know there's more to learn about Joe's story, so that's another thread that we'll probably come back to. In episode 91, we see that the leader of the Nine Daggers clan was arrested for multiple counts of manslaughter. That's Goliath's clan, right? And in 92, we learn that the leader was arrested because there was a leaked video of him shooting a man in the head. Which made me wonder, is Tora in this notebook? He's definitely shot people before. He's not necessarily a clan leader, but he's pretty high up there. He's a Bolcheman elite. People have said elite many times. And a theory I am 98% sure might come true is a clan war is coming. They've talked about it a bit, and this notebook is causing and seeding a lot of chaos, so maybe we'll see a clan war. We'll have to see. In episode 93, we learn that Goa, Quincy's mom, is part of the Alton clan. Another thread we have to come back to. I want to see Quincy's grandmother. I feel like she's a high-ranking person in the Alton clan, if not the leader. Like, she's the Vincent Bolcheman of the Altons. But she is sick. She had heart surgery, and that's something we don't want the Bolchemans to know. In episode 96, we learned that Moonbright is a clan-neutral town. So what does that say about Poppy's dad? He lived in clan-neutral territory. Why then was he swapping the address of where Poppy lived? Like, what clan connection was he worried about for him to do that, if he did that? If he used his computer engineer hacking skills to switch the addresses to hide Poppy's house? What was the reason for that? We also learn it's forbidden to run clan operations in clan-neutral cities, and if caught, those who break the agreement are severely punished, whether they're a clan member or a clan leader, and we don't know who they're punished by. But we do know that Tora is definitely engaging in clan operations out here in Felicia Bay, clan-neutral territory. So if he gets caught, he's in trouble. Inspector Lane has kind of caught him in terms of she saw his van in this town, and I wonder if that's somebody who can punish him for that, or is she going to try to help protect him? We really don't know. But I kind of have a feeling that Inspector Lane is more helpful than hurtful. That's just my gut. Y'all, in this latest batch of episodes, from like 95 up until 102, I don't know, it just felt like, are we getting the unsolved mystery of, is this a love triangle? That's the question I have. Is this a love triangle? Because the way Quincy has been staring at Poppy's butt in an interested way more than once. Poppy's heart in 102 went butt-ump, and Tora had to call her out for it because Quincy was trying to put the maid uniform on her, and I guess his face got too close, and she was just into it. She was into him and into it. So I don't know. I don't know what we're doing here. Is this a love triangle? I want to know. I'm curious about it because it feels like there's some attraction happening, and we'll see if anyone acts on it. Here's an unsolved mystery you might have forgotten about. In episode 97, I think we learned that Tora's name is spelt T012A. We see it in a flashback when he's purchasing the house, and the person he's talking to says, "Sir, is this your full name? It's very unique." "Ah, I see. It's in your ID. Okay, then. It's on his ID. Then I guess his name is T012A, and we've been calling him Tora this whole time." I just want to see that confirmed one more time, so I'm leaving it in the Unsolved Mysteries basket. This latest batch of episodes also brings up the question of, is this manor actually haunted? Tora looked into it, and he doesn't think a real person wrote the word go in the cabinet. But I'm like, a ghost is in this world of Midnight Poppyland writing in cabinets? We talked about it in depth on this podcast, so we'll have to see. But that's an unsolved mystery for me right now. In episode 102, Quincy says it's a good thing that Tora kept Giyu away from the clan radar all this while. So remember, all the way back in episode 15, we learned that Giyu owes his life to Quincy and Tora. So that just felt like another clue into Giyu's past. Man, I could read a whole webtoon about that. I really would. Like a whole webtoon set in the time where Tora was younger and he'd just taken on Giyu. And we just learn about their lives together and what Quincy was up to at the time and what Poppy was up to at the time. If her father was still alive, maybe when she was like 15 or so. Yeah, she said that's when he passed. I would love to go back to that time and see what actually went down because it's definitely informing our present and our future in Midnight Poppyland. And the last unsolved mystery that I would like to bring up is in episode 102 when Tora explains that Damien is watching over Erdine and Giyu is crashing with Jacob because Jacob's girl is out of town. You guys, where is his girlfriend? She is never here. When we went to the club celebrating Poppy and Tora's birthday, where was she? He's like, she was gone. I wish I'd invited her because everyone's coupling up. Where is she? She is never here. I have not seen her. I don't know if I believe she exists. Is that what it is? Because remember, I have not trusted Jacob in the past. I trust him now. But I was so sus of him because he was always making this excuse about his girlfriend. But maybe Jacob made up having a girlfriend so that, people would think he had a girlfriend. And it's as simple as that. That's my latest theory. And I'm sticking to it until I'm proven wrong. Okay, you guys. This was incredible. Thank you so much for listening as I recap Midnight Poppyland with you. It's been a joy and a pleasure. If you had fun, check out my Patreon at patreon.com/girlwonder. There's much more where this came from, and you get it first over there. All right, let's wrap this up. Wow, you made it to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for listening to Girl Wonder. Coming up this weekend on the podcast is a recap of episodes 228 and 229 of Lore Olympus, which I accidentally forgot to post publicly. It was on my Patreon, but I didn't post it to the public, so prepare yourselves for that. I'm Jo Rochelle, and we'll talk again real soon. Bye!